From the east to the west, you've heard others, but now you've tuned into the best. This is a Prime Wave Media production.
What's up, world? It's the one and only Pop DBIC, the Primetime Capper. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling great. I hope you're feeling the same. And it is time for the premier sports betting show, the PrimeTimeAngles. And man, it is Friday, the 15th. So we all know that it is payday for a lot of folks in America and everything like that. I know everybody's excited about the weekend coming up. You know, you got week 2 of the NFL, you got week 3 of CFB. You got a tense baseball race going right now as well, too. So there's a lot of great things going on in the world of sports, to be honest with you. So pretty much let's go ahead and get into our first topic, and that's going to be what happened last night in Philadelphia. And pretty much we had ourselves a very offensive game in the second half. Eagles win 34-28 after forcing the Vikings into 420 turnovers and dominating in the run game. And that run game was led last night by DeAndre Swift, who had 175 yards on the ground and was absolutely tremendous last night for the Eagles. He really was the engine that made them go last night as well, too. But I will say this, the player of the game, the X factor, the guy that really put the game over the top and really gave the Eagles the insurmountable lead that they needed to push ahead. Even though it was only 13, the Eagles are a good enough team. Once they get up double digits, you're not really going to come back on them. Yeah, it was a late score that made it 28-34, but at the end of the day, you kind of knew as soon as they scored that last touchdown that it was going to be the game. But the initial touchdown before that really did put the game out of reach, in my opinion. That was when Devonta Smith went ahead and caught a 64-yard touchdown, and it was absolutely tremendous. And the separation that he got on the play is just, very rare. That's my whole thing. And now you really see why the guy won the Heisman the way he did, and the way that they really did not try to question how great his skills were coming into the NFL. A lot of people felt that he was a little too light, a little too little to be in the NFL, but I say he's the perfect weapon. He's exactly like another great wide receiver that was in Philadelphia. And you guys know who I'm talking about, Deshaun. So, that's some high compliments right there. But I know this is probably going to sound a little crazy today, but we'll see it in 10 years. Devonta Adams is much better than Deshaun. I'm going to keep it real with you. He's going to be an absolute gem for this team, because Deshaun used to be able to get that for you maybe once or twice a game. Really, with Devonta, if you didn't have A.J. Brown and had another receiver on that side, he still is going to get his separation. It doesn't matter. And I think that we got a little bit of jealousy going on in Philadelphia as well, too, because A.J. Brown was very adamant that, he needs to get the ball. Why are you not throwing me the ball? I'm wide open, blase, blase. But we did see every time Jalen Hurts threw him the ball, he wasn't open. He thinks he's open, but he's not open. And Jalen Hurts was very conservative last night. And it gets you to thinking that, are we really one of the better quarterbacks in the league? Or are we one of the better game managers in the league? And I keep professing that point. Jalen is a game manager. He's a very high-end game manager who's in the realm of, say, Russell Wilson early in his career. And Russell Wilson had to be somewhat of a game manager, but he knew how to do everything right. It's the leadership that keeps Hurts out there and keeps the Eagles on focus, straight up. It's not the intangibles. It's not any of that, because we saw that last night. He's a good quarterback when it comes to throwing, but he's not a great quarterback. And he has two great receivers. And one of his receivers is a guy that's going to be great with any quarterback you give him. And the other guy is a receiver that's going to be great with the quarterback that has a better arm. And so I'm just throwing things out there. I'm not trying to ruffle any feathers or anything like that, Philly fans, but you may need to think about possibly swapping out A.J. Brown for another wide receiver, some type of fantasy situation in a sense this season. But I think that would be a very, very good look if you start to think about that, to acquire some more assets, because your team really won't miss a beat when it comes to making the playoffs this year. Now, getting back to the Super Bowl, that's going to be difficult. I can see it today that it's going to be a very difficult situation. They're going to still be really good, but if we really put these two teams together, them and the Cowboys, at the end of the day, the Cowboys going into this week are a better team because their defense back end is much better at this point, or from what we saw in week one. But if that's the hold up for this season, the Eagles are in trouble when they play these guys. I'm keeping it dead real, dead honest with you. And I know that this is going to be a season that's going to have a lot of turns, ups and downs for literally all these teams that are sitting at the top. It's not going to be a runaway season literally for anybody this year, in my opinion. You can see it now. Teams are going to have their issues week in, week out. Some teams might have a whole month of issues, but you have to just stay the course and make sure you win enough games to get to the playoffs. And once you get into the second season, you write your own destiny. It's either you can be put out early or you can be the Super Bowl champion. It's one or the other. All right, so with that, let's go ahead and move forward and get into our next topic at hand, and that's going to be this. That's going to be the state of the Lakers. The Lakers have extended Vanderbilt for the next 4 years, and they've given him $48 million. What to expect from this deal? I'm going to be kind of a burden of bad news for my fellow Laker fans, but I truly do see Vando's deal as a moving parts deal. When I say moving parts deal, that means that you're a great player. You're a great asset for our team. But at the same time, we value you in a way to where we can use you as a trade piece for possibly an upgrade of the same player that you are. The Lakers have set their team up every single year with LeBron James, except for the first year with LeBron, because those guys were homegrown, built, all that good stuff. They've always set these rosters up for guys who are moving parts. And that's because if LeBron's not winning, then we're going to have to move guys. And we have to put together the right type of packages to get the upgrades of those players that we're trying to get. So I'm putting Vando on that list. I'm putting Gabe Vincent on that list. And I hate to break it to everybody who loves him to death. And I know he had a great time in the Olympics and everything like that. Austin Reeves. Yeah. Rule. Yeah. Yeah, they're on that list. D'Angelo Russell, it's like 5 guys right now that are moving parts, just like the other 5 guys that were moving parts last year as well, too, that all got moved. So you have to understand, the only 2 players on the Lakers team that are safe from being moved are AD and LeBron. And if they have to move anybody out those 2, they'll probably have to move AD because LeBron is your communal figure. He's your star. He's the end all be all. You know what I mean? So that's what he is at this point. But hopefully this is going to be his last season. I know a lot of people are like, nah, he got so much more time left. I truly do think that with him motioning for the Olympics, things like that, that he wants to retire at the end of this season, go play in the Olympics, go get a gold medal, call it a career. And that would be the greatest way for him to go out because he would be winning his country a gold medal. But let me stick to the topic at hand. Vando's deal is very significant because it shows that they're very into keeping Vando a part of the Lakers. Vando, to me, is like a bigger version of having Rondo. Rondo was a great defensive asset to the team, but he wasn't the best offensive player. Same thing goes for Vando. Vando is a very good defensive player, great defensive player, and he's one of the best in the league, but he's one of the more below average offensive players in the league from what we saw. You know, he's gonna have some nights where he'll score some points. That's everybody in the league. But there were too many nights where it was just, what are you doing? You know, like literally, you just out here on the court. And I think if you're paying him this amount of money, what you did was you extended him. When you do the math on 4 years, $48 million, that's $12 million a year. He needs to play like a $12 million player. Guys really treat being a $12 million player nowadays like being a $1.2 million player or a $120,000 player. And they need to be better because you're getting paid a lot of money to be a certain type of player and you're not playing up to that standard. But we do understand the inflation of the NBA nowadays as well too. But that's something that shouldn't be excused because now they're cutting the money down. It's that simple. That's when you have different labor agreements and different labor moves and things like that. And they're saying that the owners are getting the advantages in the last 2 or 3 that they have had. You've noticed that they keep cutting down on the bottom guys' money, but they keep upping up the upper guys' money because they know when they have those contracts in place, those contracts are moving parts as well too. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it shakes out. It's great that they committed themselves to Vando, and Vando has committed himself to the Lakers. And this looks like it's going to be something that's going to help the Lakers move forward with a very good look to start the season. It doesn't mean that they're going to be a great team to start the year. It just means that they're coming back and these are the guys that they trust from last year because half those guys are gone now. And once again, LeBron's going to be running with about his 7th remix of a Laker team. And I've never seen a Laker really get that type of privilege. You know what I mean? Kobe had to run with a lot of scrubs. LeBron doesn't have to deal with all that. Magic made all those guys really good, so he wasn't running with no scrubs. That's different. He was running with some real ballers. That's the whole thing. Kobe was running with guys that they could afford. LeBron is running with guys that they can acquire through trading other players. You know what I mean? So it is what it is at the end of the day. The Lakers looking good, and we move forward, and it will be now. Let's talk about the CFB Friday game. And real quick, I'm not doing Bolt report today, but I'm here getting some news now. Thank you, nephew, for that. Eckler is right now, he is very doubtful for Sunday, but that's okay. That means it's going to be some Josh Kelly, and hopefully they go ahead and say, let's get Elijah Dotson 10 touches. Because if they get Elijah Dotson 10 touches, they can win that game by 3 touchdowns or better. And you can quote me on this. You can bookmark this, buddy. If they let Elijah Dotson play, they're going to be that it will be very significant come Sunday. All right, so we have the CFB Friday game of the night with Virginia and Maryland. This is an old rivalry right here, DMV, as they like to say. You know what I mean? The DMV, DC, Maryland, and Virginia connection. Well, these two haven't played each other in a very long time. Let's keep it real. These guys were both ACC arch rivals for a very, very long time. And Maryland, you know what? They took the money and ran. They went to the Big Ten. They got tired of the ACC and playing the game in the basketball world with the Carolinas and the Dukes, and then playing the game in the football world with the Florida States of the world and the Clemsons of the world. So Maryland, you know what? They felt like, hey, they could take their ACC program and go to the Big Ten and be a power in the Big Ten. It hasn't really worked out that way. Basketball kind of still is intact, but football has kind of taken a step back, but they've had their time in the first, weeks of the season where they've looked really good. And they do have a player who is possibly a NFL draft pick and Tua's little brother, who's absolutely a gem in my opinion. I think that he's a great player. And I feel like he'll be a very sufficient backup early, and he can possibly earn himself a spot as a starter later on in his career if he's able to make it to the NFL in the full version that you can, But this game tonight, you got a Virginia team that comes in here 0-2. They lost a heartbreaker to another rival who used to be an FCS team. Now they're a Sun Belt Conference team, and that was James Madison. They wound up losing them by 1 point. And I bring this up because I really do feel like James Madison is actually a better team than Maryland. And that's crazy to say, but let's keep it real. James Madison was a top 5, top 3, or just the national champion for a long time in the FCS, formerly the Division 2A, all that good stuff. They used to really be a problem. And now they've moved on. They're in the FBS, where they've been chomping at the bit to get to for the last decade. And now they're in the Sun Belt, and they were able to play Virginia, and the game was meaningful this time. Before, those games used to not mean anything. It used to just be like, hopefully the FCS school doesn't beat Virginia today. But you know what? Now they're all FBS schools, so they're all on the same playing field. So what happens? James Madison works themselves into a great win. It's that simple. Now, Maryland's played really well to start the season off, but you ask, who did Maryland play to start the season off? They played Townsend, a local rival, another FCS school. They beat them by 38-6, and that's an annual game for Maryland. So that's their tune-up. It's always going to be their tune-up. And then Charlotte came in the next week. They made their debut on NBC because, Big Ten, NBC, all that good stuff. It's their first season together. So Maryland got the second week game against Charlotte. And Charlotte actually came in and dropped 14 points to start the game. And then they got it together on Maryland's side. And it took a while, too. They kicked 3 field goals. And then that's when they started lighting up this. Then in the third quarter, they started lighting up the scoreboard. So this team can start slow. And that's where I think it works into Virginia's favor coming into this game, because Virginia has nothing to lose. They're not being taken seriously. They've already played a top team in Tennessee who beat them 49-13. And then last week, like I said before, they took James Madison all the way down to the last minutes. They had a 21-point third quarter. So I truly do feel that tonight you'll get Virginia to cover. They haven't played Maryland in a very long time, and they are absolute arch rivals. And, I know that they didn't continue their series, but it's going to get heated tonight. It's a DMV battle. So I do like Virginia with the plus 15 tonight, and that will wrap up our CFB game of the night. So let's move forward and let's talk about a fight that was just announced by ESPN and their sources and everything like that. But we're still waiting on the initial press conference as well, too. But Shakur Stevenson will now face off against Edwin De Los Santos on November 16th in Vegas. And that's going to actually be F1 week as well, too. So it's going to be huge. The events in Vegas, but I think this fight might get a little overshadowed or overlooked because that event is really a standalone event, and you bringing this boxing match is almost like an appetizer for people that are just going to be walking around the strip and things like that. Because how are you walking on the strip if you have an event that literally has made new roads on the busiest part of the little city of Las Vegas? So when we get down to the fight, Edwin De Los Santos, you see that man right there? That's Rayo. Rayo was seen as one of the top prospects for PBC. Whoop, 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 whoop. And we walked into that fight night that night on pay-per-view, and he got absolutely sparked. He got knocked the F out, okay? And Edwin De Los Santos redeemed himself because he was seen as another body going into that fight, but he was always a top tier lightweight. So him going into the fight and beating Rayo the way he did, it showed that he still got it. And he's been able to be very successful in his last few fights where he's been really good. And in his last fight against Ardornio, a guy who was highly rated, highly favored, he absolutely shut him out. He dominated this guy. He he really put on an absolute clinic in that fight. And you just get really excited about what you can see in Edwin De Los Santos. And you know that Edwin is possibly the biggest threat to Shakur Stevenson, because we haven't really had any threats to Shakur. You thought that Jamel Herring was going to be good against him. He was absolutely he was absolutely, I wouldn't say awful, but he wasn't good. Okay. And he turned into an elderly man in that fight. You know, he went from being 30 some odd years old to about 60 by the time we got to the end of that fight. But I kind of feel like he gave that fight away to his little buddy, because they were just so close before they had that fight. And then they had the fight, all of a sudden, they not as close anymore. You know what I mean? But it's all good. Jamel took it in a humbling status, and Shakur was very, appreciative of, him handing his belt over. Now, when he fought Oscar Valdez, that was huge, because Oscar Valdez was seen as a 50-50 fight, even though we knew that it wasn't. But still, they went into the fight. He did a good job of getting the house somewhat packed in Las Vegas. It was a hyped up fight, and he wound up winning the fight. It was really good for Shakur. And then Shakur, he takes a couple more fights on. He misses weight. That was pretty tremendous right there. He misses weight, but he was able to win the fight. And then he fought in Jersey again against a Japanese man who was an undefeated fighter, number one contender or whatever. But it was a real good showcase for Shakur. It showed some power for Shakur as well, too. So Shakur's last fight, he's coming off of a knockout. And then you have De Los Santos, he's coming off of a shutout. So this really does set up for a super fight in the smaller venue senses of the word. You know what I mean? But they're not going to have it at a small venue. They're going to have it possibly, I think, at the MGM Grand Garden Arena or T-Mobile, or over at the T-Mobile Arena. Really, the fight should be, y'all going to be like, nah. But with the way this week sets up, the fight would be better off at the Virgin, because you wouldn't be so congested to get to the fight, get in and out of the fight. But I'm not the promoter, so they're going to do what they want. But all in all, I truly do feel that Edwin De Los Santos is going to give Shakur problems, because I feel Shakur is a little distracted. He's very worried about what Twitter's talking about. He's very worried about who he's going to say who's ducking him this week. He's very worried about, judging fights and misjudging fights of people he doesn't like. You know what I mean? It's just he's a little distracted. You know what I mean? And I feel like he's doing a lot so he can try to get to the levels of the Devin Haney's, of the Tank Davises, of the Ryan Garcias, the Teofimo Lopez's. But you have to be kind of likable too. And he's really not passing the test that well, because you can't be entitled to anything. And that's exactly what's wrong with Shakur right now, is that he feels entitled to every belt. He feels entitled to every matchup. And if you don't, do his demands or something like that, you're a duck. That's not a good way to push your career, because I'm going to say it again, and I say it every time these guys start talking about people are ducking me. Nobody is scared of anybody in boxing. If you ever go into a boxing gym, if the star guy walks in there, there's 10 people that want to spar him. Nobody's scared, okay? It has to make sense. Money got to make sense. Dollars got to make sense, because literally you're handing Shakur a W when you fight him, and you're not one of these elite guys, or if you're not a championship type fighter. So you're trying to keep yourself relevant, because Shakur is the type of guy that can put the beating on you to the point to where you become irrelevant, and you can't book no more fights. And that's why you try to avoid it, or you try to get the best payday you possibly can to fight a guy like that. And if it's a close fight, you're most likely going to lose. You know what I mean? So, it's up to the guys like Edwin De Los Santos and all the other, I'm going to just say it, Hispanic guys and European guys who will just take whatever they handing you to possibly put Shakur out. And that's why I said that Edwin De Los Santos probably has the best opportunity against Shakur than anybody he's ever fought. because he's already faced adversity, he's already lost a fight, and he's already cleaned the clock of another highly touted prospect. I know Rayo isn't as good as Shakur, but Rayo could give Shakur some issues because he has the power that can give him issues. So I think that Edwin De Los Santos, one more time, should be more than game for this fight. But it is going to be the toughest fight of his life. But it looks like it could be Shakur's toughest fight of his career. You know what I mean? So we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it shakes out. And with that, we're going to go ahead and take our first break of the show. And when I get back, we're going to jump into the Blue Crew Daily and the MLB Friday Night. So you guys stay tuned. This is the Premier Sports Betting Show, the Primetime Angles with the one and only Pop DiBiase, the Primetime Capper.
Good News Only Racing Club, led by the legendary Doug O'Neill, the trainer of 2 Kentucky Derby winners, and I'll have another in Nyquist. Also trained 2-time Breeders' Cup champ Golden Sense, who are just a part of a long list of thoroughbred champions trained by Doug O'Neill. The Good News Only Racing Club has a young core of horses to look out for in Dennis's Celery, Irish Heatwave, and Notre Dame, just to name a few. Win the day every day with the Good News Only Racing Club, a proud sponsor of the NFL Bet Exchange.
From the East and the West, you've heard others, but now you've tuned into the best. This is a Prime Wave Media production.
Tune into Big Wave Boxing every week with a brand new guest with the one and only Pop DiBiase, the Primetime Capper, getting the best boxing stories, best boxing angles, and the truth when it all comes down to the sweet science. Tune in to Big Wave Boxing on the Prime Wave Media channel on YouTube.
All right, we're back with the Premier Sports Betting Show, the Primetime Angles with the one and only Pop DiBiase, the Primetime Capper. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling great. So let's go ahead and jump into this bad boy and get into the Blue Crew Daily. The Dodgers are absolutely cooking it up right now, but they got a tough weekend coming ahead of them as well, too. So with the Dodgers, Blue Crew Daily, Dodgers started a 3-game series in Seattle, a place where it's been tough to win. Like literally, it's been really tough to win in Seattle for the Dodgers. I know this. Now, Seattle coming to LA, that's always kind of a better look for the Dodgers. But man, when they got to play against the Mariners in Seattle, Seattle just always figures out ways to come up with clever wins. One that I do remember is they're the first ever team that had their bullpen do a perfect game. Yeah, their starter got out the game in like third inning because he had some soreness or some issue or something like that. And then they took 7 different pitchers to go ahead and throw a perfect game. And that literally started the opener closer idea in Major League Baseball. Okay. Because now a lot of teams don't start the 5th-day starter anymore. They do what we call an opener. An opener is usually the guy that's either closing for you or he's your setup man. And what he does is he opens up the game for you while the actual starting pitcher doesn't come until about the 2nd, 3rd inning. So then possibly they can pitch the rest of the game. This ideology actually used to be a old playoff strategy. And I remember it being used very well when the Red Sox played the Indians in a playoff series where it was the elimination game for both teams. It was a game 5. And what happened is that the Red Sox started one pitcher. I can't remember his name, but I remember the guy's name that replaced him. They brought in Pedro Martinez about the 3rd, 4th inning, and the Indians were cooking. They were doing very well. They had cooked up that pitcher. They had, it seemed like the Indians were going to cruise their way onto a victory. Not so fast. Pedro absolutely shut them down that night, and the Red Sox went on to win that game and win that series. And I think that's the year before they did the big move of winning the World Series against the Cardinals, but then beating the Yankees to get there. And we all know how epic of a time that was for them to go ahead and handle all that. You know what I mean? That was absolutely, it's always will reign in everybody's head, the greatest playoff run of any sport ever, the Boston Red Sox. But the Dodgers this weekend, they're going against a hungrier team. The Dodgers are only 4 games out from actually absolutely clinching, okay? And the Dodgers probably will clinch this weekend if they win maybe 2 out of 3 this weekend. But the Dodgers aren't in any rush to, overextend themselves. Let's keep it real. So you have a team that may be a little shaky this weekend. I'm just giving you a heads up because the Mariners have a whole lot more to play for. The Mariners are not locked in for the playoffs. The Mariners are holding off the Blue Jays, and they're trying to keep up with the Astros and the Rangers. And also, they're trying to somewhat hover around the Rays or the Orioles. They're not a lock for the playoffs yet. So they really do need to take this series very seriously, while the Dodgers just need to make sure they get out of this thing healthy. And I keep saying this for every series with the Dodgers. It's all about getting out of these series healthy, because you just had Mookie have an MRI the other day, and that's because he had some issue with his knee. But he's fine. He's cool. You had JD Martinez have a groin issue. That's kind of been fixed up as well, too. So the Dodgers nursing injuries and all that good stuff, it's the perfect time to do it as you are going into the second season. And the Dodgers aren't in a must-win situation, but you don't want to see them get swept or anything like that, and you want to see them compete as well too. But I'm just giving fans a heads up. If they don't win the series this weekend, don't run on to Twitter, don't run on to Facebook, don't run on to Instagram whining, saying that the ship is sinking, because it's not. This is September baseball for teams that did their work and did their job throughout the year. It's just like a kid that when we're graduating from high school and he's the only kid that showed up to school every day, pretty much when we get to the month of June, he's the only kid that doesn't have to keep coming to class because we don't have to do any more work and we already did all of our finals. Everybody else got to keep showing up so they can graduate. This guy's already on his way to graduating. That's how the Lakers are. I mean, that's how the Dodgers are in this situation. So pretty much with that, I like the Dodgers going into the series this weekend, but I honestly think the Mariners absolutely take this one as well, too. That's just my thinking right there. I'm not going against the Dodgers or anything like that, but I'm just using my head and not betting with my heart. I just really feel like Seattle is going to be a better team this weekend than the Dodgers because they're at home and they got to win. It's different when you got to win. You know what I mean? So pretty much with that, let's go ahead and move forward and get into the MLB Friday Night. MLB Friday Night, we have a full schedule tonight. We got some very, very tricky games for teams that are headed to the who are in the playoff mix. They may look easy on paper, but these are going to be their hardest games of the season because they can't play down to their team to those teams' competition, and then they can't play down to they can't have those teams play up to their level. You know what I mean? So it's going to be tough. It's going to be real tough this weekend for many teams that are on the edge of being in and being out of the playoffs. Okay, so pretty much let's go ahead and get into our first game, and it's going to be the Braves at the Marlins. The Braves are 4 games out of winning 100 games already. And then you have the Marlins 75-72. They absolutely crushed my expectations. I had them going under on my deal, and they actually went over. So, that's much props to the Marlins for doing that. And I'm double checking, making sure I got that one right. And actually, I had the Marlins going over 76. So we're actually 2 games away from that absolutely happening. So it wasn't that they crushed my over. It's that they're about to hit my over. But one thing I can't say is I can't say the Braves are under 95 anymore because now they've won 96 games. The Mets were never going over 94.5. I don't know what I was smoking on the good stuff, I guess, that day. And then Funniest one of them all. The biggest egg on your face ever. The Nats under 59. The funniest thing about the Nats was this. They had the Nats as having the least amount of wins in the National League. And they are actually like the ninth place team right now. And they're ahead of a team in the Cardinals who were supposed to win 88 and a half games. But let's break down the game, though, okay? This is a must-win situation for the Marlins. Once again, the Braves are just chasing 100 wins now. They've already pretty much lapped the whole division. They've already clinched their spot as well, too. So pretty much with that, they're going to be the 1 seed most likely. And they're going to have home field advantage throughout, and that includes the World Series too. So the Braves, what do they have to play for? That's the biggest question. What they're playing for is to keep their unit healthy until we get to the playoffs. You know what I mean? Acuna, he's great, but the thing that makes the Braves better than everybody is if Acuna goes out, they're not going to miss a beat. The Dodgers are in a perplexed situation. If something happens to Mookie Betts, they may be already getting ready for Cancun. If something happens to Freddie Freeman, they may be already getting ready for Cancun. But the Dodgers have the right type of manager, and the Dodgers have the right type of attitude to where they possibly could still make a run, but they still need those two to ignite that run. Now, with the Braves, it's not the same scenario. They got 6-7 players that can make them go. You know what I mean? So pretty much I'm looking at this one. You got a pitching matchup tonight with Bryce Elder, 12-4, 3.38 ERA, going against Johnny Cueto, the vet, 1-4, 6.1.5 ERA. He struck out 33 on the year and walked 14, while Elder struck out 120 and walked 54. Now, both these teams are top 10 in batting average this year. The Braves, number 1 in on-base percentage. The Braves, number 1 in runs. The Braves, number 1 in home runs. The Braves, number 1 in slugging. They just literally are just crushing offensive marks this year. And they have a 240 batting average as a team. But the Marlins are a bit better in a sense. They got 244 here. I'm talking about batting average against them, sorry. But they're both in the top 15 for that. So, you know, these are two good teams going at it. And the Braves are exceptional. They've already won the division. What more are they playing for? They're playing to keep guys consistent, confident, but they're not going to rush anything. I can easily see them the final week of the season sitting out all their starters, okay, for at least half of the games for that week. So with that, I feel like tonight what happens here is the Braves are going to come into this one a little bit too cocky for themselves. And what happens is that you get this Marlins team to get themselves a nice dog bet win. I got them winning this game as a plus 140 dog, and they will be our dog of the day as well, too. At home, woof, woof. So let's go ahead, move forward, jump into our next game, and that's going to be this one right here. It's going to be the Red Sox and the Blue Jays. This is an AL East rivalry game, and as you know, the Red Sox have pretty much played themselves out of the playoff race, and then you have a Toronto team that's pretty much almost played themselves out as well, too, because they just lost 4 games in a row to the Texas Rangers, who are chasing the same playoff spot as them. Now they're a game and a half out, but actually they're only a game behind Seattle and the Rangers at this point, but still they won 4 games in a row, and that can deject your team. And then you look at Boston 7.5 games out. Boston at one point was about 3.5 games out, 2.5 games out, but Boston just could never get consistent. Boston just fired their general manager as well, too, who had full control of the roster, full control of the team. And literally all he did was clean house with all the superior players that the Red Sox had and pretty much turned the Red Sox into a middling team. They never became a bottom feeder like that, but they became a middling team with some feel have middling talent, because yes, he made deals happen with teams to get their prospects, but maybe those prospects weren't the right fit for the Boston Red Sox, and the prospects they gave away in those deals have thrived in these other spots that they sent them to. So sometimes you might be jumping the gun on potential because you see another shiny object over there. And that's exactly what the Red Sox are going through at this point. So when it comes down to this game tonight, the way that I see it shaping up is you have two teams that are chasing the same thing, but one's further back from the other. The Blue Jays need this win badly. The Red Sox want to beat them badly. The Red Sox want to stay above 500 at least to end the year. So this is going to wind up being a much better game than it looks on paper. And I truly do feel the Red Sox will be right here in the midst of things as well, too. And when I look at what I'm doing here, I would say that I'm not doing a damn thing here, because I don't even have a play up for this game. So pretty much sorry about that. But if you're going to take anything in this game tonight, I would say play the scoreboard and actually play the under bet tonight. Jose Barrios and Brayan Bello should be really, really good tonight. And we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it shakes out. But I do like the under in this spot tonight. So let's see how it goes and let's see how it shakes out. All right. So we have ourselves our final game, and that's going to be this one right here. This is going to be the Cubbies and the Diamondbacks. The Cubbies coming into this one 78-69, Diamondbacks 76-72. Both these teams are staring at the possibility of being in the playoffs this year. The Cubs are the number 2 wild card team at this point, while you have Arizona, who just got dropped out of the wild card berth spot again. They're sitting right outside, but they're in a deadlock with the San Francisco Giants. The Giants have one win less than them, but they have one loss less than them as well, too. So this gives them the tiebreaker at this point. But say Arizona wins tonight, they'll be back ahead of them. Okay. But Arizona has to get on the good foot because they literally tied. But the biggest problem is Cincinnati sitting right there in the cut with the same exact record. So this is a huge weekend for both of these teams and the Giants as well, too. But the Cubs could easily have themselves out of this thing if they lose 3 in a row. If they lose 2 out of 3, they're still in the mix. But the Cubs are really, really on alert right now. The Diamondbacks really can't afford to lose either because you're looking at this now. If the Diamondbacks wind up losing 2 out of 3, they'll probably fall back a game and a half. You don't want to do that going into next week because next week just gets harder because your guys are more tired. Your guys are more complacent, and you're trying to get everybody to stay in rhythm. So this is a good weekend to get into the right rhythm to get you into the playoffs here for this final 2-week stretch. The Cubs have played so well here in the summer and in September to get to this point. And I think that the Cubs really know that this right here makes or breaks a lot of guys' seasons and makes and breaks a lot of guys' contract negotiations going into next year as well, too. So this is going to be a fun game tonight. And the way that I see this one shaking out is like this. I truly do feel like what happens here is that you get a Cubs win because they got their best pitcher on the mound in Justin Steele tonight. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it shakes out. And we will go from there. Okay, so we are going to take our final commercial break. And when I get back, we're going to jump into talking tickets. I got MLB tickets and I got college football tickets for you guys today as well, too. So you guys stay tuned for talking tickets coming up next. And this is the Premier Sports Betting Show, the Primetime Angles with the one and only Pop DiBiase, the Primetime Captain.
Now you and your friends can compete in the sport of kings and win big with Stable Duel. Get the app, pick your horses, and get in on the thrill of horse racing with daily games competing against other players. Bring home the glory and the cash and move up the annual leaderboard while you leave your competition in the dust. Get in the game with Stable Duel. Play, race, win.
Good News Only Racing Club, led by the legendary Doug O'Neill, the trainer of 2 Kentucky Derby winners and I'll Have Another and Nyquist. Also trained 2-time Breeders' Cup champ Golden Sense, who are just a part of a long list of thoroughbred champions trained by Doug O'Neill. The Good News Only Racing Club has a young core of horses to look out for in Dennis's Celery, Irish Heatwave, and Notre Dame, just to name a few. Win the day every day with the Good News Only Racing Club, a proud sponsor of the NFL Bet Exchange.
All right, we are back with the premier sports betting show, the Primetime Angles, with the one and only Pop DiBiase, the Primetime Capper. And let's go ahead and jump into Talking Tickets. Talking Tickets, we have ourselves the MLB Series Bets to kick off our group. And the MLB Series Bets for this weekend are going to be 8 of them. And we're going to go with the Pirates upset and the Yankees, plus 165. Got the Marlins upset and the Braves this weekend, plus 190. Got the Blue Jays winning over the Red Sox this weekend, minus 180. We got the Mets winning this weekend over the Reds, kind of sending them into the abyss of the MLB possibly, but I like them with the minus 145. We got the Guardians in the Rangers situation. Rangers got a lot of pressure on them this weekend. Guardians trying to play one last great few weeks for their great manager and Terry Francona, who did take them to their last World Series almost 8 years ago. And you have the Royals as my big dog this weekend. I like them a lot. Plus 250. Astros seem to always choke up against some of the bottom level teams in the MLB. And I think that the Royals won't be the exception to that. I think, they'll be absolutely on the money in this one and take 2 out of 3. So I like the plus 250 here. And then I like the Cubs with the minus 135. This should be another really strong play for us this weekend as well, too. Diamondbacks, I know I'm on the Diamondbacks to possibly get into the playoffs because I just love the way that they've played this season. And I know that they'll be a little exciting in the playoffs as well, too. But they're going to really have to grit down this weekend, and I think the Cubs are going to have more grit this weekend. That's why I'm taking them. And then I like the Mariners tonight with the plus 120 as well too. I know that it's a little bit of blasphemy because I'm a Dodger and da. But at the end of the day, if I know that they're going to lose some money, then I'm going to have to go with the other side when the other side looks like they're the more favorable. You know what I mean? You can't sit up in here and play favorites with nobody, even if it's a team that you admire, you follow, you watch, all that good stuff. You have to bet with the open mind. I don't know how many times I got to stress this to y'all. All right, so we move forward. And we have the MLB PrimeTime PK6, 90-1. We have the under 7.5 with the Yanks and the Pirates today. Our dog of the day is the Marlins money line plus 140. We got the over 8 with the Rangers and the Guardians today. We got the plus 1.5 with the White Sox minus 115. And then we have the Royals money line plus 150. And then we wrap it up with the Brewers today with the run line plus 115. All right. So that's going to be a 90-1 ticket right there. And that looks really good because if you put up $10, you get back $900. If you put up $20, you get back $1,800. So just know that I'm giving you guys some great math to get you some great payouts as well too. Not that little easy rinky dinky stuff that gets you what? You put up a 6-1 and you get a 3-1 ticket back for you. That's okay. You got 3-1 on it, but damn, you still had to put up $100 to get 300. Let's play this thing smart. I give you this 90 right here. You get $20 on it. Then you got $1,800. You paying rent and you get to go to Vegas. So it is what it is. Moving forward. All right, so we have the MLB Late PK4, 15-1. I got the Cubs minus 145 tonight, taking care of their business. I got the Giants under 10.5 at Coors Field tonight. And then we got the Tigers and Angels facing off at the Big A. So I'm taking the Tigers tonight on the run line plus 145 because they have Tariq Skubal on the mound tonight as well too. And then we have the Padres and the A's over at the Cali in Oakland. And I do feel like this game goes over the 8.5. So let's move forward and get into tonight's college football. And we have up first the CFB Friday Night Lights pick 3, 6-1. San Antonio, 7.5 point favorite tonight. Hopefully they can win this game by 2 touchdowns or more, or 10 or more. And then we have Virginia in the DMV rivalry against old foe Maryland tonight. I like them as the road squad with the plus 15 tonight to really surprise everybody's tickets, because I know that one of the more popular tickets today is going to be on Maryland when you look at Virginia's record and you look at how Virginia is coming into this game. And then we finish up with another rivalry game, in a sense, Utah State and Air Force. You know, you got the battle of the boys from Provo going against the boys from Colorado Springs, and this should be a fun game. So we'll see how it goes. And I like the 6-1 here as well, too. So let's move forward, and we jump into the CFB Rise N Shine Pick 6. This is actually going to be all games that kick off at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific time. And if you're in the Central, 11. If you're in the mountains, 10. Okay? So 66-1, Akron plus 26 in their spot. I think that they should be able to cover that game. BC plus 25 going against Florida State. They're going to give Florida State hell. I'm just letting you know that right now. It's always an issue when Florida State has to deal with Boston College. And Boston College is at home this time around, so I don't see them losing by 4 touchdowns. I think that they lose this one by 17 or less. All right, so we have Ohio at home. I'm taking them with the plus 130. I know Ohio is in a situation where they are playing against a team that's from the Big 12, but it don't matter. Iowa State has been a little shaky to start this season. Ohio is supposed to be one of the better teams in the conference. They did look really good against San Diego, but Rourke got hurt early. But they were able to figure some things out in that game and got a lot better. So this week, I wouldn't overlook them in this spot, to be honest with you. I like the plus 130. You got James Madison in a conference matchup this week against Troy. James Madison, to me, is the best team in the Sun Belt Conference as well. And I think that they're going to prove my point tomorrow when they face off against the Troy. I'm trying to think of Troy's the Troy Trojans. Yeah, I think that's what they are, Trojans. All right, so we have LSU in their conference matchup tomorrow with Mississippi State, a good, nice old foe. They're going to be tearing Starksville up tomorrow, but I like LSU with the 9.5 to win that game by 10 or better, really 2 touchdowns or better. I did not like the way that Mississippi played against I did not like the way Mississippi State played last week, period, point blank. That team that they played, they should have beat them by 30 points. You know what I mean? The Mississippi State that was coached by the great Mike Leach. Now this group, they're a little different. All right, and we finish up with their neighbors to the south, east, west, I don't know, but they in Louisiana as well, to the other Louisiana school, Louisiana Tech, and I really do like them coming into their game as well, too. I'm taking them with the 4.5. They're going against old foe North Texas, who moved on to the AAC. It should be a fun game there as well, too. All right, so we have ourselves the final group, the final ticket, and this is going to be the CFB Power 5 Super High 5, 68-1. We just reviewed all the games for the this yesterday. So you guys can go to the YouTube channel, Prime Wave Media, and you guys can actually watch all the clips of that there. But I said I wanted Illinois yesterday. I'm taking the plus 15 still on Illinois. I said I was going to take Michigan State yesterday. I'm taking the plus 16.5 on Michigan State. I said I was going to take Minnesota money line. I'm taking Minnesota money line plus 225. I said I was taking TCU 7.5 because I feel like they're going to absolutely scorch Houston. I'm taking the 7.5 TCU. And then I'm finishing up in the rival game, the SEC game of the week between Florida and Tennessee. And I feel like Tennessee goes to Gainesville as usual and gets their feelings hurt. I'm taking Florida with the plus 185 to do what they do best, beat Tennessee. So with that, that's going to be a wrap on Talking Tickets today. I want to go ahead and thank you guys so much for tuning into the show. You guys are the absolute best. As I always say, bet with your head, not with your heart. The movement is moving, and this is the premier sports betting show, the Primetime Angles, with the one and only Pop DiBiase, the Primetime Capper. And be on the lookout for all my bets and picks and all that good stuff for college football tomorrow and for the NFL on Sunday. Possibly, I might be doing Talkin Tickets on Instagram. You guys know that's a show that we've done for years on years, but hopefully I can have enough time to do it because Sundays move quick before we get the kickoff. But all in all, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure you guys press that play button. Make sure you're pressing subscribe. Make sure that you're sharing this. Make sure that you're retweeting this. Let's get these numbers up. All right. So with that, thank you so much. Have a beautiful day. Enjoy your weekend as well, too. And I am gone.
From the East and the West, you've heard others, but now you've tuned into the best. This is a Prime Wave Media production.